He thought he was just saving two strangers from a burning wreck deep in an alien jungle. But when the smoke cleared, the shadows stepped forward, he saw their eyes. Glowing like fire and ice, they weren't just survivors. They were royal blood. Daughters of a ruler feared across 3 star systems, and by galactic law, saving them meant one thing. Now, with enemies closing in and the entire court watching, he has to make an impossible choice.
Gotcha.
Refusing them doesn't just break the law. It might start a war that burns the whole galaxy. And the worst part? They're smiling. They will see a man, a human, standing in the middle of fire and alien screams. They will see 2 women, not human, taller, sharper. Their eyes glowing like fire and ice, and they will learn that saving them was the most dangerous thing he could have done. Because before the night ends, he will fight pirates. He will face a law older than the stars. And he will be given a choice: marry both, or start a war that could burn the galaxy. It began in the shadows, with smoke curling through the jungle, and the sound of metal tearing apart. He thought it was a simple rescue. But the moment they looked at him, he knew. Nothing about this night was simple. The jungle moon was alive with chaos. Black smoke poured from the burning wreck, twisting through the massive trees. Alien birds shrieked as the night sky turned orange with fire. Jack's boots crunched on wet leaves as he ran toward the sound of screams. His armor suit was scratched, dented from his crash earlier that week, but the rifle in his hands was steady. A bright flash lit the clearing. What was left of the ship was split open like a gutted beast, metal hanging in twisted claws. He saw movement inside. 2 figures, tall, armored, their bodies outlined by the flames. For a second, Jack thought they were soldiers, but then the firelight caught their faces, not human. One had long red hair, glowing green eyes that locked on him instantly. Her armor was made of leather and metal plates shaped to fit her body like it was part of her. The other had long blue hair streaked with pink, her violet eyes almost shining in the smoke. They were beautiful, deadly beautiful land. Even in the chaos, they stood as if they were used to danger. "Move," Jack shouted, raising his rifle. "This wreck's gonna blow." They didn't answer, didn't even move, until a blast ripped through the jungle and a group of raiders burst from the shadows. 6 of them, armored, armed with plasma rifles, moving fast. Jack didn't think he'd just fired. The shots lit the trees in sharp bursts, dropping the first pirate before he could raise his weapon. The others scattered, shooting back, their bolts slicing through the smoke. Jack rolled behind a fallen log, firing between the gaps. Forcing them back, the red-haired one finally moved fast, like lightning. She grabbed a weapon from the wreck and started shooting at the raiders with deadly accuracy. The blue-haired one stayed low, scanning the shadows. It's almost like she was hunting for someone specific. A plasma bolt hit the tree above Jack's head, showering him with burning splinters. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward, firing again and again until the last raider went down. The jungle fell silent except for the hiss of burning metal. Jack turned toward the 2 women. "You hurt? You have to go." They didn't answer right away. Instead, they looked at each other, and in that brief, silent exchange, something passed between them. Strange, knowing look, almost like they were speaking without words. Then both of them turned to him at the same time, their eyes locked on his. "Follow us," the red-haired one said, her voice low and commanding. Jack hesitated. But the ground shook beneath them, another explosion tearing through what was left of the ship. He didn't have a choice. He followed as they slipped into the dense jungle. Their movements quick and fluid, almost too graceful for the muddy ground. Behind them, the wreck burned hotter, and somewhere far away, new sound began to echo through the trees. Not the voices of raiders. Something else, something hunting. And Jack, running through the darkness, with 2 alien women he didn't know, felt a cold realization sink into him. He had no idea what trap he'd just stepped into. But whatever it was, it had already closed. The jungle opened into a clearing where the moonlight spilled over silver leaves and strange glowing flowers. Jack's breath was sharp in his helmet, but the two alien women didn't slow down. They moved like they knew every inch of this world, slipping between roots and branches without making a sound. Jack's boots crunched against the ground, his armor catching on vines. Every few seconds, the red-haired one glanced back, her eyes studying him like she was measuring something. When they finally stopped, it wasn't to rest it was because a group of tall, armored soldiers was waiting. Their armor was dark gold, inlaid with symbols Jack didn't understand, and their eyes glowed faintly through narrow visors. They raised their weapons, but not at the women at him. The red-haired one stepped forward and spoke in a language Jack had never heard before, her voice smooth but commanding. The soldiers lowered their weapons instantly and bowed their heads to her. Jack caught the blue-haired one watching his reaction, the corner of her mouth twitching like she was holding back a smile. The soldiers motioned for Jack to follow. He hesitated but noticed how the women moved with complete confidence as if this was their territory. They walked him to a sleek alien craft hidden among the trees, its hull shimmering like liquid metal in the moonlight. Inside, the air was warm and scented with something floral and sharp. The ship lifted without sound, gliding into the sky, and Jack caught one last look at the burning wreck far below. He didn't know if those pirates were dead or regrouping, but either way, they were gone for now. The red-haired woman finally turned to him. "You will come before our mother," she said in perfect, flawless English. Jack blinked. "Your mother?" She nodded slowly. "Empress of the Ver Dominion, ruler of 3 star systems. And now, your judge." Jack frowned, leaning back against the wall of the ship. "Judge for what? I didn't do anything. Except save your lives." The blue-haired one let out a soft laugh, leaning closer until her eyes locked with his. "You saved more than our lives, human, and by our laws, it means you belong to us now." Jack opened his mouth to respond, but the ship broke through the clouds, revealing a massive orbital station ahead, larger than anything he had ever seen. It spun slowly, surrounded by fleets of alien warships, its lights glittering like a city, wrapped around a giant ring. His stomach sank. Whatever game they were playing, he was already deep inside it, and there was no turning back. The alien ship slid into the docking bay of the orbital station with the smooth grace of something alive. Jack's boots hit the metallic floor, and the moment he stepped out, a wave of heat and sound rolled over him. The air smelled faintly of ozone and strange spices, and the hangar stretched so far it felt like it could hold 1,000 ships. Rows of soldiers stood at attention, their armor a mirror of the ones in the jungle, dark gold, inlaid with glowing blue patterns. The women walked ahead without hesitation, and the soldiers didn't even glance at them. But every single glowing visor turned to watch Jack. Their silent stares crawled over his skin like static. At the far end of the hangar, enormous silver doors parted, revealing a hall carved from black stone, polished so smooth it reflected the light like water. Alien banners hung from the ceiling, their symbols sharp and unfamiliar. Jack followed, the sound of his footsteps swallowed by the vast space. The hall opened into a massive chamber where a single figure sat high on a throne of pale crystal. The Empress. She was taller than both daughters, her hair silver white, her eyes a deep gold that seemed to burn from within. Her robes shimmered with shifting colors, and every movement she made was slow, deliberate, and heavy with authority. When she spoke, her voice filled the air like music and thunder combined. "Human, you saved my daughters." Jack straightened, unsure if he should bow or salute, so he did neither. "I did what anyone would do." The Empress's gaze sharpened. "No, you did what no one else could. You faced armed hunters and brought them back alive. By the law of the Dominion, you are now bound to them, and they to you." Jack felt the words hit him harder than the heat of the room. "Bound? You mean like—" The blue-haired daughter's lips curved into a slow smile, her voice dripping with amusement. "He doesn't know the law, Mother." The Empress's eyes never left Jack. "It is simple. You saved royal blood. By our code, you must take them, both as your bonded mates." For a moment, Jack thought he'd misheard. He almost laughed until he saw the steel in her gaze and the complete lack of humor in the guards' faces. And if I refuse? He asked, testing her. The Empress leaned forward, her golden eyes locking onto his with the weight of a star. Then, human, you will not live long enough to regret it. The words of the Empress still echoed in Jack's head when the palace alarms began to scream. The deep, throbbing wail shook the air, and the floor beneath them vibrated like the heartbeat of a beast. Guards rushed in, speaking rapidly in their alien tongue, their movements sharp and urgent. The red-haired daughter's eyes narrowed, her voice cutting through the noise. Pirates, they followed us. Jack's chest tightened. He knew these weren't the kind of raiders who gave up after one failed attack. Through the open archway, he caught a glimpse of the view beyond the crystal walls. The blackness of space was alive with fire and movement. Enemy ships streaked past the station's outer defenses, their plasma fire cutting into the docking bays. Smaller explosions flashed across the hull. Throne room, the Empress stood, calm but radiating a cold fury. They dare. Her voice was low, deadly. She turned to Jack. You fought them once. Fight them again, beside my daughters. Before Jack could answer, the blue-haired one grabbed his arm, dragging him toward a side corridor. Come on, human time, to show us how you kill. The corridor led to an armory where alien rifles, blades, and strange glowing devices lined the walls. Jack grabbed a rifle, testing its weight, and slung a bandolier of shimmering power cells across his chest. The sisters armed themselves with practiced ease, the red-haired one strapping on sleek armor plates, the blue-haired one sliding twin curved blades into holsters at her hips. Then they were moving, boots pounding the polished floors, the sound of distant gunfire growing louder. When they burst into the docking bay, chaos had already taken hold. Pirates in jagged armor clashed with royal guards, the air thick with smoke and the temps of burning metal. Jack took cover behind a cargo crate and opened fire, the alien rifle kicking harder than his human weapons but punching through enemy armor like paper. The sisters fought like predators, one moving in bursts of blazing rifle fire, the other darting through the smoke to cut down enemies before they even realized she was there. Jack found himself covering their flanks, moving instinctively with them, as if they'd fought together for years. Then he saw a heavy assault mech stomping down the bay ramp, its weapons glowing hot, its steel frame bristling with cannons. The guards fell back instantly, but the sisters didn't stop. Jack gritted his teeth, reloading. If that thing reached the inner gates, the palace would fall. Somewhere deep in his gut, he knew if they lost this fight, it wouldn't just be the palace burning. It would be him. The battle in the docking bay ended with the mech lying in smoking pieces and the floor slick with melted armor plates. Jack stood breathing hard, his armor scorched and dented, the alien rifle heavy in his hands. Round him, the guards were shouting in their strange language, dragging the wounded away. The red-haired daughter wiped blood from a shallow cut on her cheek, her eyes locking on him in a way that felt almost appraising. The blue-haired one leaned against a crate, blades dripping faintly with steaming residue from the mechs. Cables, her lips curling into a smirk. Not bad for a human. Jack was about to answer when the Empress herself strode into the bay, the crowd parting like water. She walked past the dead pirates without even glancing at them, her golden eyes fixed on Jack. You fight well, she said, but skill in battle is not enough to stand beside royal blood. Jack wiped sweat from his brow. And I never said I wanted to stand beside royal blood. Her gaze hardened. Our laws do not bend to your wishes. You will face the trials, pass them, and you live as one of us. Fail, and no one will remember your name. Before Jack could argue, guards stepped forward, surrounding him. The sisters didn't stop them, though the blue-haired one winked at him as they led him away. The first trial began within the hour. They gave him no time to rest, no chance to heal. Jack found himself standing in a chamber where the walls were made of seamless white stone. In the center was a circular platform glowing with pale light. The Empress's voice came from everywhere at once. Trial 1 survival. The floor under his boots dissolved into light, and in the blink of an eye the world changed. Was standing on a barren ice field, the wind screaming like a living thing. Snow whipped into his face, burning his skin even through his armor. Above, the sky was a roiling mass of black clouds streaked with blue lightning. He turned slowly, realizing the platform had vanished. He was alone. The cold was already biting into him, and the HUD in his helmet flashed warnings about suit temperature. Somewhere in the distance, a shadow moved huge, slow, deliberate. Jack started walking toward a jagged ridge, his boots crunching through the deep snow. His breath came in ragged bursts, crystallizing instantly in the air. He reached the ridge, the ground trembled. The shadow resolved into a massive creature, its body a mix of fur, scales, and chitin. Its head crowned with curling horns of ice. Its eyes burned with pale fire as it roared, the sound echoing across the frozen waste. Jack swore under his breath. This wasn't a test of endurance, it was a hunt. And he was the prey. The creature charged, its claws tearing deep grooves into the snow. Jack dove aside, rolling behind an outcrop of black ice. He aimed his rifle and fired, but the bolt glanced off the beast's armored hide. The thing roared again, swinging one massive claw and shattering the ice beside him. Jack's instincts screamed to keep moving. He sprinted toward a cluster of jagged spires jutting from the ground, weaving between them as the creature smashed. Through, each blow sending shards flying, his mind raced. Couldn't outmuscle this thing, but maybe. Spotting a narrow crevasse ahead, Jack bolted for it. He slid between the icy walls, his armor scraping. The creature tried to follow, but wedged itself in the gap, snarling, its claws thrashing. Jack grabbed a fragmentation charge from his belt, one of the few pieces of human tech he still had, and slapped it onto the wall above the beasts. Head, he dove back as the explosion ripped through the ice. The spire above shattered, sending tons of frozen rock crashing down onto the creature. The roar cut off in an instant. Silence fell, except for the howl of the wind. A beam of white light speared down from the clouds, and the voice of the Empress filled the air. Trial 1, complete. The ice field dissolved into light, and Jack was back in the chamber, his armor steaming from the cold. The sisters stood at the edge of the platform area, the red-haired one, looking at him with open approval now. Lyra, the blue-haired one, tilting her head as if rethinking something. Not bad, Arya said. Most don't last 5 minutes out there. Lyra's smirk returned. He didn't die yet. Before Jack could respond, the platform began to glow again. The Empress's voice came like a blade in the air. Trial. To combat. The world dissolved once more, and Jack found himself standing in a vast arena under a blood-red sky. The sand at his feet was dark, wet with something thicker than water. Around the edges, thousands of alien spectators roared, their voices a chaotic wave. Across from him stood a single opponent, a towering figure in black armor, its face hidden behind a featureless mask. It held a weapon, unlike any Jack had seen before, staff tipped with a curved blade at each end. Both edges glowing faintly blue, the gates clanged shut behind him. The masked warrior moved first, the staff spinning. In a blur, Jack barely raised his rifle in time to block, the impact sending a jolt up his arm. The warrior pressed forward, blows raining down with bone-breaking force. Jack ducked under a sweeping strike, rolled to the side, and fired, but the warrior twisted aside, the bolts sizzling past. The fight became a blur of motion, every strike, testing Jack's reflexes to their limit. The alien was faster, stronger, and its weapon carved through the air with deadly precision. But Jack noticed something. Its strikes followed a rhythm, a pattern, and if there was a pattern, there was a way to break it. When the next swing came, Jack stepped into it instead of back, letting the blade pass just over his shoulder. He slammed the butt of his rifle into the warrior's side, then dropped low, sweeping its legs out from under it. The warrior hit the sand, rolling, but Jack was already moving, wrenching the staff from its hands. He spun at once awkwardly, not with the alien's gray sand, drove one end into the armor's weak point at the neck. The crowd erupted into a frenzy as the warrior went still. The Empress's voice cut through the noise. Trial 2, complete. Jack dropped the staff, breathing hard. The arena faded into light, the sand dissolving beneath his feet. He was back in the chamber again, the sisters watching him closely, now not with mockery, but with something else. And then the Empress spoke again. Trial thrilled the mind. Jack hadn't been out of the trial chamber for more than an hour when the palace shifted from celebration to shadow. The great halls were quieter now, guards stationed at every entrance, their glowing eyes scanning every movement. Jack noticed the change instantly. Too many whispered conversations, too many glances that died when he turned to meet them. The sisters stayed close, but even they seemed on edge, their usual teasing silenced into tense focus. That's when he heard two guards speaking in hushed alien tones behind a column. Not realizing the translator chip the Empress had ordered implanted in him was active. The words cut like glass. The pirate attack, the trials, all of it had been part of a plan, and the hand behind it wasn't some raider lord out in the void. It was someone inside the royal court itself. A high-ranking voice, a voice with enough power to order Jack dead without anyone questioning it. The name they whispered sent a jolt down his spine. Lord Verac, commander of the royal fleets. A man who had stood beside the Empress during every public address Jack had seen. He didn't get the chance to tell her. That night in the Empress's council chamber, the doors slammed open, and armored soldiers poured in. Verac was there, his face calm, his eyes like cold metal. He didn't shout an accusation, he didn't need to. A single word from him, and the guards turned their rifles toward Jack. "He is a spy," Verac said, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "He brought the pirates here. He means to take the throne through the daughters." Jack laughed once, a sharp, humorless sound. "Oh, that's insane." But the guards weren't interested in reason. Arya stepped forward, fury in her eyes. But more soldiers entered, surrounding them. Lyra's hand slipped toward her blades, but Jack shook his head subtly. This wasn't a fight they could win here. The Empress wasn't in the room, and without her, the law was whatever Verac said it was. They were escorted not gently through the winding corridors to a landing platform where a transport ship waited. The cold night air carried the hum of its engines, and as the guards shoved them aboard, Jack saw the stars beyond the city's shield shimmer with distant movement pirate ships waiting like vultures. The hatch sealed and the transport launched, taking them away from the heart of the Empire. Lyra finally broke the silence, her voice low and sharp. "He's handing us to them." Jack met her gaze, his jaw tight. "And then we take the ship before we get there." The red glow of the control panels painted their faces in shadows as the transport slipped into the void, carrying them toward the enemy. And the truth Jack was now certain of: if they didn't escape, they'd never see the palace again. The hum of the transport's engines became a growl as it broke into open space. The distant silhouettes of pirate warships swelling against the starfield. They were waiting, their jagged hulls glinting with red running lights, weapons already powered. Jack could feel the tension thrumming through the metal beneath his boots. The guards were relaxed. They thought this was a delivery, not a fight. That mistake would cost them. Jack caught Arya's eye, then Lyra's. No words passed, but the message was clear. The moment came when the transport banked slightly, aligning for a docking approach with the largest pirate vessel. Jack moved first, snapping the restraints off his wrists and slamming his elbow into the nearest guard's throat. Arya flowed into motion beside him, sweeping a rifle from another guard before he even hit the floor. Lyra darted forward like a streak of light, her blades flashing once, twice, leaving the cockpit crew slumped over their controls. In under a minute, the transport was theirs. Jack slid into the pilot's seat, scanning the layout with a soldier's eye. The controls weren't human, but flight was flight. He pulled the nose up hard, breaking the docking alignment. The pirates reacted instantly, their ships turning, weapons tracking. "We can't outrun all of them," Arya warned, bracing against the wall. Jack grinned faintly. "We're not outrunning them, we're breaking them." His fingers flew across the console, diverting all power to forward shields and engines. He punched the throttle, driving the transport straight at the nearest pirate frigate. At the last second, he banked hard, skimming so close, their shields sparked and overloaded. Lyra was already at the gun controls, her shots ripping across the frigate's exposed hull. One ship down. The others swarmed, but Jack wove the transport between them with impossible precision, cutting through their formation and forcing them into each other's lines of fire. The comms lit with curses and alien tongues. A massive cruiser turned broadside, blocking their escape, but Jack dove beneath its belly, scraping so close the hull's gravity plating yanked at the transport. He cut the engines, letting momentum carry them clear, and fired the main thrusters point blank into the cruiser's sensor array, blinding it completely. As the pirate scrambled, Jack pushed the transport toward the outer edge of the fight strait, toward a small, unguarded maintenance frigate. They docked hard and fast, stormed aboard, and within minutes Jack was in its captain's chair. The pirate fleet was in chaos now, their formation broken, their sensors confused, and when Jack swung the frigate around and charged back into the fray, his weapons blazing, the sisters beside him, the pirates finally realized this wasn't just a rescue anymore. This was war. The stars burned cold beyond the fractured battlefield. Pirate wrecks drifting like broken bones in the void. Smoke and debris swirled past the frigate's viewports as Jack guided it through the graveyard he had made. Arya and Lyra stood beside him, silent but alive, their faces lit by the pale glow of distant suns. The combs crackled, and an imperial insignia flared on the display. The sisters stiffened. A woman appeared tall, regal, her armor gleaming gold and black. The Empress. Gaze slid past her daughters and fixed on Jack. "Human," she said, slowly, her voice carrying the weight of command. "You have done what my best warriors could not. You saved them. You destroyed our enemies in the same breath." Jack said nothing, his hands resting on the console, eyes locked on hers. "Galactic law," she continued, "is not flexible. You've taken my daughters from death itself. By our oldest code, you must take them into your house as your own." The words hung heavy in the air. Arya's expression was unreadable. Lyra's lips curved faintly, almost daring him. "And if I refuse?" Jack asked, his voice low. The Empress leaned forward, her eyes glinting. "Then I will command it, and you will obey, not as a man, as a subject of the Empire." Silence filled the cabin, broken only by the slow hum of the engines. Jack rose from the captain's chair, stepping forward until the holographic light shimmered across his armor. "Then it seems," he said, "that I'm bound, but I don't serve anyone." The Empress's smile was small, dangerous. "We shall see." The transmission cut, leaving only the flicker of the dying battlefield outside. Arya and Lyra exchanged a glance one Jack had seen before, on that burning moon where it all began. A glance that said this was not the end. This was the beginning of something far more dangerous. The stars were watching.